meeting you right where you are on your foster care journey. This is the Forgotten Podcast.
Tony Mitchell entered foster care as a newborn and 2 years later was adopted into a caring yet impoverished family. His family managed to meet almost all their needs from what was produced on their small farm. Growing up in poverty and on a farm taught him the value of building life convictions based on faith and integrity. And throughout his career, Tony has served in various leadership roles and now is passionate about utilizing his personal and professional experience as a board member, speaker, and advisor in just all different ways that he can help other people. He is actively a champion for marriages and for children who've been fostered or adopted and their caregivers. Tony and his wife, Vanita, have 2 grown children and live in Atlanta, Georgia. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jami. Much appreciated. Thank you for inviting me.
So happy. Yeah, so happy to have you on. It's interesting because I actually met your wife at CAFO, Christian Alliance for Orphans,
yes.
right after I was going to be speaking in a room right after you. And so as we talked, she just shared some of your story. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to hear more. So I'm like,
Yes.
I got your number that day. But interestingly enough, my teammate was in the session and she is the one who researches guests and finds guests. And she came up to me after and was like, I found a podcast guest. And I was like, so did I.
Yes. Did not know they were the same person.
Yeah. So that was pretty exciting. And so I'm
Well,
just super
I'm honored
happy
to
to have
here.
you.
Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
invitation, Jami.
I would love to hear, I mean, you entered foster care as a newborn and
Yes.
you were 2 when you were adopted. What are some of your first memories?
Obviously, I don't remember anything of foster care. Some of my first memories, we lived in the city before we moved to the farm. We lived in a neighborhood that was a pleasant neighborhood until it got rough, and then we moved. So some of my first memories is in this small house in Cleveland, Ohio, with a Christmas tree and just the joy of being able to just enjoy family time. Small little house, small yard, but it had everything that we wanted.
I love that. When you've talked about, and I introed it too, that growing up in poverty really taught you a lot because you grew up in a more material poverty, but not a poverty of emotional poverty or spiritual poverty. You had a family grounded in faith and love, right? So just I would love
Yes.
to hear more about that experience and how that taught you some of these values you hold today.
Yes, I did not know I was in poverty until you get to school and you see what other children have. But it really taught a lot of what we had to do, we had to work hard for. So, in order to grow our vegetables, you had to plant them, you had to weed them, you had to harvest them, you had to take care of the cows. I hated as a teenager getting up. We lived in the north and trampling through the snow to feed the animals before we would go to school. I'm no quote, nobody else has to do this. Why do I?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that work ethic, then
Mm,
when I got to college and I started to study, then when I got to my career and I started to work hard, everything else seemed easy in the light
mm.
of how much hard work and responsibility we had on the farm. So it prepared me with a great work ethic and great values.
Wow, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
your parents were believers, is that right? And grounded
My
your family in
my
faith?
dad was. My dad was a
Okay.
believer. My mom was not until
Okay.
my wife actually led my wife to the Lord after my dad's passing. So they are now both in heaven. Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. So talk about kind of growing up years. I'm curious when you first learned or like realized you had experienced adoption and foster care, or was this something like was there a conversation or was it something you kind of always knew?
No, I didn't know. I was around 9 or 10 years old, and my dad, who was a very, manly man, not very touchy-feely at all, he decided to tell me, and as he broke the conversation, it was very awkward to see a man of his stature trying to explain the birds and the bees and then why you came into our family different than the way children normally do. So I wish there
Huh.
were YouTubes and videos back then to record that moment. But then he shared with me. And at first, as a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, I was all excited. I wanted to, quote, find my real mom, which I know hurt my mom's feelings. And I had all these illusions of what I wanted to do. And then after about a month, as with children often happens, it kind of wore off. And then after I went through some other things in life, I decided that you're my mom and dad, and I will never look for my mother until while you're alive. I won't look for her.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
at 10, I mean, 10's pretty old to actually hear this.
Yes.
But your experience was more of just kind of excitement and like there wasn't was there like a why didn't you tell me before, or there was none of that?
No. Yeah, there was none of that, but I did wonder, why did my mom let me go? So why did my mom
Sure.
let me go? So those questions as I grew started to kind of come to mind. Probably within a couple
Uh-huh.
of weeks, I'm asking, why did my mom leave me or let me go? And then after that, you start to fill in gaps and wonder and dream about what your family looks like and all the things that adopted and foster children do. Those just kind of carry through my teenage years. And as a rebellious teenager, some of that you start to use against people. So all of that happened, but my immediate response was, "Wow, this is kind of cool. I'm different."
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
dad's approach was very good. I mean, he
Yeah.
approached it that we could not have children, and we searched for a child that could join our family. And when
Mm,
we found you, we were convinced you were the one. So
mm.
a very good way to bring it up, also.
So you mentioned some rebellion in your teenage years and some questions and things you were going through. How talk more about that? Like, what was that experience like for you as you was it caused mostly from the questions of adoption?
No. Most of my rebellion, as I grew up, when we were in Cleveland, we lived in a predominantly African American culture, and I was too light for African Americans, so not accepted. And then when we moved to rural America in the middle of nowhere, then I looked different and I'm too dark for anyone that was there. And there was only two or three people of color. So that really created a persona of how are you going to defend yourself in an environment that sometimes can become hostile. So that's where the rebellion started. I had to stand on my own 2 feet and learn a lot of things. But as my mom and dad tried to emphasize responsibility and structure and values in my life, my rebellion turned into, well, I'm my own person. And then you say very hurtful things like, well, you're not my real mom and dad anyway. And that was a mistake. My dad just about took me out when I said that. Um, he did. I could remember that conversation like it was today. He stood up. He was a very imposing man. His voice was very deep, and he said very intensely, he said, "You are my son, and if you ever say that again, I will kick your," and fill in the blank. So I was like, "Okay, well, obviously, don't
You
go
got the
there." Yes,
message.
and I never questioned it to him again. But the rebellion
Uh,
manifests itself in
mm,
trying to define my independence, but yet at the same time, my identity, which
mm,
my dad did a great job of reinforcing, even though I was rebelling, that
mm.
my identity is not based on where I was born or what happened. It's because I was created in the image of God. And he drilled that sometimes emphatically. But for example, I would get name calling at school, just like any child would. And I'd come home and every once in a while tell my dad, and he would say, "Son, are you going to listen to the words of a 12-year-old at school, or are you going to listen to the words of the God who created you? Don't ever let somebody define who you are outside of God's definition." So that's the kind of reinforcement that he built in, even while I'm rebelling, even while I'm rebelling.
And that stuck with you even while you were rebelling.
Absolutely. Yes. When I came back, I got kicked out of the house when I was approximately 16 years old because
Huh.
I had just gone too far and reacting to my mom or saying things to my mom across the line. So my dad kicked me out, came back in the house. And then after I met Christ, the first thing I did was to leave college that weekend. I accepted Christ on like a Wednesday, Thursday, and that weekend I drove back home and then apologized to my parents for what I put them through in my teenage
Hmm.
years, and then really just profusely thanked them for what they had done in my life. They really did a great job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey friends, it's Jamie just popping in to let you know that during the entire month of February, applications to become a TFI advocate are open. Now, if you've been a longtime listener or if you've been following the Forgotten Initiative, You are well aware of this advocate role, and maybe God has been nudging your heart to take this next step. Well, I want to encourage you to apply during the month of February. Training for this new advocate cohort will begin in April, and we would love to see you there. So I can imagine that as a parent, walking through a child who has gone through a season of rebellion, who you've kicked out of the house, like, they probably didn't expect to get that sort of response from you.
Yeah, I don't think they did. They were surprised. They were surprised, and at first, my mom, who was not a Christian at the time, she thought this was some kind of cult thing. As many respond when you're on fire for the Lord and you're really passionate about who He is and what He's done in your life. And my dad, I can remember my dad, who I said was very strong. He just kind of looked at my mom and said, "Hey, the boy knows what he's talking about. Let him talk." I was like, "Whoa." Yeah. So he wasn't as surprised, but yeah, it was a definite change, and it was a
Mm,
noticeable change in my language and how I carried myself and
mm,
everything. So
wow. And what do you attribute? When did God, you said God caught you, got you, saved you, saved you,
yes, yes.
in college. Tell me more about that.
Because of our financial situation, I ran out of money 3 times while I was in college, and it took me 5 years to get my 4-year degree. So I was in my 5th year. I had a job offer that I had accepted that would pay me more than my dad ever received in his life, supporting our family of 4. So I thought I had arrived. I was wealthy. But there was this void that was left. So I decided, okay, well, my dad always reads this book. So
Huh.
I'm going to go to the bookstore in town, the religious quote bookstore, and I'm going to buy one of these Bible things. So
Huh.
I walked in, I bought a Bible, I took it home, started to read in the New Testament as the person in the store had recommended. And my first response, which is very comical because my dad spoke so much wisdom into our life, was, "Hey, they got this from my dad." So, yes.
That's amazing.
Uh, and then as I continue to read, my second response, which really has never left me, is, "You are the one that has orchestrated my life from conception.
Wow.
I now know where I belong." And it changed
Oh,
my life. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. The power of God.
Yes, indeed. And
Oh,
no holds barred. All in from there till now.
wow. I think that identity is such a core thing for all of us. And we talk a lot about identity in foster care and adoption world
Yes.
because our kids come from different families into our family, right? And so that can mess with, but I just love how your dad pounded identity, from God, your true identity. Um, I just think that is what we all need no matter what we've experienced. It's like when we really know where we belong and who we are in Christ, I mean, it changes
It's
everything.
it's everything. And I've had some difficult times, as many children, whether they're biological, adopted, fostered,
Mhm.
homeless, whatever it may be, we all go through things in life. This is a
Yeah.
very flawed, sinful world, and it
Yep.
causes pain on all of us that can impact our identity. But our identity is also in the maker and creator of the universe that spoke everything into existence by sheerly saying the words.
Yeah.
And he doesn't make mistakes. And he, for whatever reason, in his infinite wisdom, decided to disclose himself to the world through flawed people. We are all flawed. So our identity is a flawed person that's being used as an instrument of God to reflect who he is to a broken world that desperately needs to see him. And one of my sayings when I start to get uh, discouraged or thinking like, "Ah, why should I say anything?" is I just remember that God used a mule to speak in the Old Testament. So I say, "Hey, if He can use a mule, He can
I
use
love
me,"
it.
and I just go forward. So our identity in Him, we are flawed, but
Amen.
we are His
Mm,
child.
yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Hmm.
Okay, so you experienced a change in your relationship with your parents, I imagine,
Yes.
after you experienced Jesus
Yes.
changing you. Um, and but later on in your life, you actually did pursue, or you found your birth mom. I don't know
Yes.
how that happened. I would love to hear more of that story.
Yes. In my 40s, at this point, my parents passed when I was in my 20s. So in my 40s, my loving wife asked me a question that would plague me for several months. She said, "Hey, at this point, your birth mom is probably in her mid 60s. If she's still alive, is there anything you would like to say to her?" And I'm like, "Oh, jeez, what kind of question is this?" So all my life, I had no desire to find my birth mom because my mom was my mom. My adoptive mom was
Mhm.
my mom. That's it. And I thought about that for about 2 or 3 months. And I said, you know what? And I had learned from my non identifying information, they call it in my adoption record, that
Mm.
she had been offered by someone to pay to terminate her pregnancy.
Wow.
So I said, okay, you know what I would like to say to my mom if I could find her? My records are sealed. Is I'd like to say thank you for the brave decision as a 21-year-old not to terminate me. And two, I want to let you know everything turned out all right. So I just wanted to pay tribute to her. So it took me 16 months, 17 months, something like that to find her. And I found her. At first, she was shocked, as you can imagine, in her mid 60s. And she said, "What do you want?" And she was almost defensive from the beginning. And I told her I wanted to pay tribute and said the two things I wanted to say. And then she had told me she had walked around for over 40 years wondering what had happened to me and feeling that she had made a mistake and that I had been neglected and abused. And this was the most freeing call she had ever received in her life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, okay, we gotta back up just a little bit because I need to
Yes.
hear, like, the
Yes.
emotions, like, what are you experiencing, and how did you find her? Maybe start there.
Yes. Well, the internet was not as useful back then as it is
Yeah.
now. So it was looking at information in courthouses. I only had about 5 placement pictures. And by, I believe, a miracle, my wife happened to be looking at one of them and she turned it over and she saw the erased embedded pencil marks that was actually my birth last name. So that was the beginning. And then you have to look at some records. I was coached by a volunteer organization that helps birth children find their birth parents that's in the county where I was born. And for a long series of looking at documents and doing searches and looking for people, I eventually found her. I actually found 2 or 3 people that could be her. And then had to go through a methodical process to make sure it was the right person. And, yeah, 16, 17, 18 months later, I'm on the phone with her.
So what is that call like? I mean, you dial the
Oh,
phone, I
oh,
mean, I
Jamie.
just can't imagine what you're
Yes. So my wife was by my side. We had a
Mm,
couple of people praying for me and us while we were going to make this call. I called at dinner time in her time zone. She was in a different time zone. And my coach that I mentioned had said, "You can't leave a message with anybody or on any machine."
mm,
So when I called, a man answered the phone, which I found
huh,
was her husband. So I said, "Hey," and I asked for her by name, first, middle, maiden, and last married name.
mm,
And most people, if somebody called my wife and I answered the phone, I'd say, "Who
yeah,
is this?" And
right.
he just says, "Okay, let me get her." So I was like, okay, God's absolutely at work. And then, so I'm nervous. And then I was coached to make sure you have the right person. You give them your birthday and you say, "I'm doing some family research." I had no idea that she would remember my birthday 40 something years later, but of course she did. And that's when she responded the way she did, and we had our
Yeah.
conversation, and it was about 3 hours long, and
Wow.
we really formed a good relationship. We lost touch about 2 or 3 years later because her husband
Mm,
came down with cancer,
mm,
and, she had to nurse him for a while until he eventually passed.
hmm. Wow, that's
Yeah,
wild. Yeah.
very, very wild.
What did that for you, was there healing that brought? Was healing needed? Like, was it, you said for her it
Yeah.
was the most freeing call she ever got.
Yes. For me, I wanted to know, but for me, I felt compelled to thank her.
Hmm.
That's what I really wanted to do because
Yeah.
I have had a very, very blessed life, even though I've had some difficulties. I wouldn't even put them in the category of trauma, but there's been some very difficult times. But my life has been very blessed. And it is because she made a very brave decision at 21 years old to first give birth and to second give me up to foster care. So that was more healing for me to say I was able to give her something. Even though it's a small token of the sacrifice she made, I was able to give her some peace that was a good decision and it changed my life. It was the beginning of a changed life.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, that was a massive sacrifice
Massive.
to,
Yeah.
yeah.
And she had to run away from home because it was a mixed relationship. So her parents did not know she ran away from home. So here you are, 21 years old, living in what's called a shepherd's home for unwed mothers. Um, and you're going to carry a child to birth and then give him up at birth. I mean, she'll never forget that year in her life. And I appreciate what she did.
No. It means it hits me differently. I just had a baby 8 months ago, and
Congratulations.
thank you. He was our surprise. Anyone who's listened to the podcast for any length of time knows, because 'cause I'm 44. He was not expected.
Oh,
He was not
oh my,
expected.
congratulations. Well, just to give you a
But
piece, Jamie, my parents adopted me when my dad was 44 and my mom was 42. So
really?
it still works. But go
Aw,
ahead.
look
Go
at
ahead.
that.
Yes.
So, yeah, I know, like, pregnancy is not easy. Giving birth
Yes.
is not easy,
Yes.
and that was for me in a loving marriage, a stable home, and knowing I'm keeping this child, and
Right.
to be so young. I mean, I have a daughter who's 22. So,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, I mean, the funny thing is my daughter and my son, my oldest daughter and my baby son are farther apart in age than me and my daughter are.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, there's a whole story being written there,
There's
Jamie.
right,
That's
there's a
that's
lot happening
there's a
there.
whole story. Yes. Yes.
But my point is thinking of your 21-year-old mom having to
Mhm.
run away from home, knowing she can't keep this child. I mean, there's just so much to that
Yes.
I
Yes.
yeah.
That's huge. And
Mm,
it was pre-civil rights, so a relationship
mm,
between an African American man and a white woman would not have been
yeah.
accepted not only by her family but within society,
Wow. Wow.
and she could have had many justifications
Yeah.
to terminate this mistake,
Wow.
and she chose not to. So she
Wow.
is, in my mind,
Mm,
she's got crowns in heaven waiting for her.
I love that. Well, we're
Mhm.
grateful that you're here
I
and
am
for the
too.
life you've lived.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you, about 10 years later, you had another experience that was pretty significant for you related to your foster brother. He
Yes.
actually found you.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Yes, probably about 12, 13 years ago, I was starting to get involved in this space for foster care and adoption and vulnerable children. And I learned a lot through CAFO's research center that there's these attachment disorders that can form if you don't attach to a nurturing, caring adult within your first year of life. And my wife would always look at me and I'd look at myself and say, I'm not exhibiting any of these symptoms. So I wonder what happened. I never knew what happened in my first 2 to 3 years. So that has always been a void in my entire life. So at 59, God decided to fill the void for me. I got an email from someone through my website, and he said, "Hey, I'm reaching out to you because our family fostered a child from 6 weeks to 2.5 years old in
Huh.
Cleveland, Ohio, and I believe that child may have been you. And if it is, I'd like to just forward some pictures and some fond memories, and if not, please pardon the error."
Mm,
So My wife was just doing backflips. I'm thinking it's a con. I'm thinking somebody's gonna be asking me for my Social Security number and a credit card, and she's saying, "No, this is real. This is what you've always wanted to know." I'm like, "No, it's not." So, that was a Saturday. We went to church Sunday.
Mm.
We had a church picnic. So, on Sunday night, I call the number that he had provided, and he answers in a very groggy voice, "Hello." And I said, "Hi, this is Tony Mitchell." No, I said, "Hello, is this so and so?" And he said, "Yes, who is this?" And I said, "Well, this is Tony Mitchell, and I'm calling, returning your call, basically, or returning an email that you had sent me. Is this a good time to talk?" Because he sounded like he had just woken up. And he said, "Yes, this is a good time. I've been waiting for this call my entire life." And I said, "Okay, who are you?" I didn't know
Yeah.
that he was the son of the foster family, and he considered me his brother. And he considered me so much his brother that he said, "I've been waiting to connect with you because I remember the day they took my brother away."
Oh, oh
And
my
that's
goodness.
and I was in one home my entire time, so I got that answer. He sent me several pictures. I only had maybe 3 or 4 placement pictures, so now I have a couple dozen. And, and he absolutely loved me, and so did my foster parents. So, no attachment issues because I was extremely loved by a caring family that fostered me, and they would have had no idea until he found me the impact they had on my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
What two really significant phone calls in your life.
Yes. Very. Yes. And the second one, I think I was 59. I was 59 years old when I got that one, so it was a long time coming.
Wow. And what was that again, it was just kind of like a this is why, like, it was just a puzzle piece that had been missing for
Yes.
you.
Yes. I just feel I call them, every once in a while, God just smiles on you and just goes, "Here."
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
after I hung up, I just said, "Okay, thank you. Thank you."
Mm.
I could have never known that.
Mm.
And, and he just, for no reason than his goodness, he just
Right.
simply said, "Hey, you've been wondering what happened in those first 2.5 years? Here you are." And they actually tried to adopt me. But
Huh.
in that era, I was told by him that white family was not permitted to adopt a child of color. So this was in the
What?
early '60s. So
Huh.
they were not able to adopt me. They would not place a child of color with a white family. So
Wow.
they were very attached.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So have you been able to maintain relationship with them over the years?
I have not. Both of my foster parents have passed. So his parents have passed, and then I started to ask him about his faith, and he had said, "No, I don't have any faith. I don't believe in God." And then as I told him throughout the conversation what had happened in my life and many ways that I believe God has moved in my life, his response as an unbeliever was, "Well, your God did right by you because both of my parents ended up getting divorced, and I've been in trouble with the law most of my life, so your God placed you exactly where you needed to be." So here we are, an unbeliever testifying to the goodness of God. But because of that, I think he's a little bit nervous about connecting. But I would hope that we can connect one day. I so appreciate what he did in those formative years of my life. I owe him a thank you and a hug, and yeah, I just so appreciate.
That's awesome. Well, I
Hmm.
think there is a theme here in what I'm experiencing through you is a theme of gratitude for
Absolutely.
yeah, where has that come from?
When I first accepted Christ and read the Bible, and as I continue to read through the Bible, nobody deserves anything. We don't. We don't. We are
Yep.
sinners. We are flawed people. We make mistakes, and in the perfect justice of God, we deserve to be separated from Him, and we don't deserve anything else.
Hmm.
And for whatever reason, this gratitude flows from the God of the universe decided to let me be born, to let me
Mhm.
be in a foster home that loved me so much they wanted to adopt me as a permanent member of their family, put me in a
Mhm.
home where my dad taught me everything that someone could learn about the Bible to the point that I thought The words in the
I,
Bible were from him.
I know. I just
um,
love that.
and then, yes. And, but they really sounded like him. They still echo his words, and he's been gone
Wow.
for 30 years.
Wow.
To have a wonderful career. I'm the only person in my family to go to college. Um, and just this life is, I really did nothing other than obey God and his principles. I mean, in corporate life, everybody wants you to cut corners and climb the ladder and step on whoever you want. So I obeyed his principles, and I believe simply because of my allegiance to him and my allegiance to what he teaches me, then the result is he blesses, not as a transactional thing, but just like our
His
children,
principles
we want
work.
to give them everything, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where that gratitude flows from. Is just I don't deserve what I have, just like nobody else does, and I just so
Yeah.
appreciate what all these people have done in my life.
Yeah. I love that. That's my grandpa used to say about gratitude. He's like, it's almost not fair how I can't how did he say this? But he was just a extremely positive person, but it's like almost not fair to be grateful because it's just it's so good.
Yes.
I
Yes.
can't think of it
Yes.
exactly, but that's the
Right.
idea.
And we've
Uh
had hard times. I never want to come off as everything is perfect in life.
yeah,
And
sure.
when my wife and I speak about marriage, we talk about some of those very difficult times. And
Mhm.
people need to hear that also, because they can
Yeah.
hear that when you're down and out and you're at the darkest points in life, and then you're at this point where God has taken you and he's redeemed bad and turned it into good, that's just as much a part of the story as the blessing. So there's been some very, very difficult times that he's redeemed and turned into something that really, really demonstrates how good he is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, you've been able to have a lot of different experiences and you have such a heart to serve others and you do that through a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
When you think about other foster and adoptive parents right now, like what is a message you want to bring to them?
The first message is, no matter how rebellious I was, my mom, who I should definitely speak more about, and I haven't given due time in this conversation, she was the ultimate example of unconditional love. There is nobody in my life that has demonstrated unconditional love more than my mom, even when I was not loving back. And the key thing that both of my parents did that I would pass on to foster and adoptive parents is they never gave up. When I am rebelling, they didn't give up. When I'm kicked out of the house and sleeping in the back of my car, my mom did not give up. When my dad didn't know if I'd quote ever turn out to anything good, he never gave up. They never ever ever gave up. And even when I tried to push them away, they still never gave up. So I would say never give up on us. And then also, I would say that one of the speakers I speak with had said this, and I think it's a very appropriate quote. They said, "Your children are not your report card." So
Mm,
when I'm rebelling, they still did everything right. I owe
mm,
everything to them. But I
mm,
was rejecting that, just like Adam and Eve, who had the perfect
mhm.
parent, rejected
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
So free will is free will. So I would say to parents, do right even if they don't understand and appreciate, which I didn't for a
Mhm.
long time.
Yeah.
Even if they don't appreciate what sacrifice and what gift you are giving them, still do right, because your Father in heaven is watching. And I
Mm,
just pray that they have the opportunity. One of the biggest blessings I have is that I had the opportunity to apologize and
mm,
reconnect with my parents before they passed, and to thank them for what they
yeah,
had done.
yeah.
If that doesn't happen, God still sees what is happening,
Mm,
and he will reward those that pour out blessings for him
mm,
to children that are broken and need to have those blessings. So I would give that to them also, that just don't give up and know that your reward's in heaven. And I pray all the time that parents and caregivers that are taking care of children that are flawed people like all of us, that they can receive their reward on earth just like they will in heaven.
Talk a little bit more about when you say don't give up. Like, what does that look like practically? Because I know that I mean, what do you mean exactly by don't give up, never give up?
So my mom, I would be saying things to her that were not kind. I was saying, you're not my real mom anyway. You don't love me. Um, I just want to be alone. I just want to be away from this family. All the things that a child would say. She would respond, instead of responding with evil, she would respond with a blessing. She would say, well, you are my child. You're never not going to be my child. And no matter what you say, I love you. This is your home. I am your mom. And that will forever be the case. And my dad did the same thing. His was more forceful, as I alluded to earlier, but he never gave up. And when people
Yeah.
would do things, I had something happen in school with the teacher that was a teacher treated me different than other students. And I told my dad about it just almost offhandedly. And I learned later that he called the school and basically told the person, this teacher, that if they ever mistreated me again, he would personally come up and talk to them about it. So I'm like, whoa. And I wouldn't recommend that, but that was my dad. He was very
Yeah.
forceful, but
Yeah.
that really signified that I really am his son.
Yeah.
There's no way I can break that, because I was still in my rebellious
Yeah.
years when that happened.
Yeah.
And so that commitment just looked like there was
Yeah.
nothing I could do to shake them. I mean, no, I shook them. I shook them. I rattled their world. But there was nothing I could do to lessen the bond that had been created. I
Yeah.
was
Wow.
forever their child, and they would never, ever let anything get in the way of that. And my brother.
Yeah. I love that. Well, now I want to, as we start to really wrap up here, there are other adoptees, who are listening that maybe are struggling. Maybe
Yes.
they find gratitude challenging. What are some encouragement for them?
Yes. We talked about identity, Jamie, and I would
Mm-hmm.
say really, really read through the Bible and look at the identity. God loves orphans. He does. God himself was an orphan. Joseph was not his natural father. Moses was an orphan when he was in the palaces of Egypt. All the way through the Bible, he talks about orphans. So it's not a bad word for him at all. And he uses orphans to impact this world, no matter what their pain is that they have experienced. And there's a tremendous amount of pain that comes through a broken family. It's very painful. But God is magically, supernaturally taking pain and some of the worst scenarios. And you can hear all these stories at CAFO, you probably heard some of them, and he's turning them into a demonstration of how great he is. Jackie, who was in one of the panels, she was left in a garbage dump, and she still has the scars of rats eating at her flesh as a baby. And now she's a missionary in Guatemala, and she has a life that really glorifies the redemptive power of God. There's several people that I've spoken with on panels that have been physically abused, sexually abused, verbally abused, and now they're at a place in life that they can turn around and help others. We
Yep.
had some individuals in one of the workshops where two ladies was talking about one of the most difficult struggles in their life was to forgive the man, each of them a different person, that had caused abuse to them, had inflicted abuse on them. And while they were just sharing their story and how they were able to reach a level of forgiveness, a lady in the same room said, I need to talk to the two of you because I don't know if I can do that. So
Wow.
there was the power of God working in this other person's life because of what he redeemed in these two people's life.
Wow. Yeah.
So that just demonstrates that God is absolutely incredible when it comes to taking our flawed, scarred, broken, painful lives and turning them into something miraculous. And I would just invite other children to lean into what his plan is for them. He will absolutely redeem every life that turns themselves over to him and surrenders to him. He will redeem them. So I just invite them to do that.
Well, Tony, I really appreciate you. This has been I feel encouraged, and
Thank you, Jamie.
just
I
appreciate your
you.
heart and your just willingness to share your story. So thank you so much for being on today.
You're very welcome, and thank you for inviting me, Jamie.
Thank you again for listening today. I hope this episode resonated with you. Let us know your thoughts. We really love hearing from you. And as always, if you want to learn more about TFI, catch up on past episodes, read engaging articles, or partner with us on mission with a gift of any amount, head over to theforgotteninitiative.org. And until next time, remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed, misunderstood, or questioning, why am I doing what I'm doing? Remember, you have a whole community here who cares for you. And even more, Jesus is fully able to meet your every need. Lean on Him and find rest in Him today. I look so forward to being together again very soon.
Resonate.